Good morning, Maddie. Good morning, good morning. La donne mobile, la donne mobile. Oh, should get my notes in order, get the pages in order before I sit down to read. I hope this finds you well and enjoying life. I'm pretty certain it does find you enjoying life, and that's a good thing. I am enjoying life as well. Let me get this. There we go. The sun's gonna come up out there, and I don't want it as I'm halfway through this to blast in. If these are coming too frequently, I think I'm doing one every other day or every 3 days. Don't feel like you have to listen to them all as they come at you. They will be on YouTube forever, I hope. And I want to get all 5 books read before I go to the States at the end of October. So I'm just going to barrel through these. If I was doing this, legit, I would read the stories by myself before I try to read them out loud. But I don't have time for that. I'm a busy man. I want to get all 5 books read before the end of October. So, no pressure, dude. Just let them pile up if you've got other things to do. These, again, are stories from Expat Days. The second of my books, the one that is a first-person, anecdotal, creative nonfiction. My friend this is called The Sky Above, the Mud Below. My friend Marty took me on a helicopter ride yesterday. This is actually my friend Matt. He was best man at my wedding. And Matt. Best man, I've had 2 friends named Matt. He was best man at my wedding, and it's a funny thing, back in the 90s, we worked together. He was a photographer, I was a writer. We did a lot of assignments like this together. And we were good friends. We partied together, we hung out, we smoked weed, we went on adventures as young men will in Phuket in the 1980s. And never ever once in all the years we knew each other spoke about politics. I had no idea what his politics were. He had no idea what mine were. So 30 years later, we hook up on Facebook. We find each other on Facebook and we friend each other. And not all, but many of his posts are political. And turns out we are diametrically opposed politically. And I had to unfollow him because it was just this constant barrage of politics every day. And I'm not interested in that. And we live in a different age. Everybody feels compelled to tell you immediately what their opinions are on absolutely everything, constantly, all the time, right now. You have to know what I think on this subject. No, I don't. I don't care what you think on this subject. So, people are wasting their time with this, and it's not good for civil discourse. But what can I do about it? Ignore it, I guess. I've got probably 1,000 friends on Facebook, and I think I've unfollowed at least half of them. Because all they do is post politics. Whatever happened to the cat playing piano videos? Whatever happened to pictures of your lunch? I'd rather see that. I don't care what you think about anything politically. And I like you, and I don't care what you think about politics. I don't want to know. And everybody else, I don't want to know. Keep it to yourself. Take it into the voting booth, and otherwise don't clutter up my feed with it. But now I'm just seeing nothing but ads on Facebook because I've unfollowed all the people who post every day. And that now there's nothing but ads and promotions. So leave social media, Steve. Yeah, that's the solution. The sky above, the mud below. My friend Marty took me on a helicopter ride yesterday. Whenever I feel like my life is becoming too predictable and boring, I give Marty a call And within minutes, I am reassured that yes, my life is about as exciting as Shakespeare performed in German. Marty is young, tall, and handsome. He tells great jokes, and he makes more money than a federal mint as Phuket's best freelance photographer. Last time I called to complain about insurance payments and caterpillars in my garden, he said, and I'm going to spare you my terrible Aussie accent, he said, "You sound down, mate. Fancy a ride in a helicopter? Other guys might offer to buy you a beer, but Marty offers to help you slip the surly bonds of earth and touch the face of God." The helicopter belonged to an Army general who was a member at the Conspicuous Consumption Country Club. The club wanted Marty to shoot their course for a brochure, and the general had offered his Pegasus in return for a lifetime of suspended greens fees. Standing with us on the driving range at 6 o'clock yesterday morning were a few friends of the club pro and a Japanese video crew. The Japanese were there to shoot the course for a nightly golf show that consistently rakes in the lion's share of the 7 o'clock audience in the land of the rising chip. For a crowded island nation with about as much spare room as a submarine, the Japanese sure love their golf. I was cramming rolls of film. Remember those? Rolls of film. Every street in Thailand used to have a Kodak film developing joint. Yeah. I was cramming rolls of film, fresh from Marty's fridge and still chilled to the touch, into my official photojournalist camera vest when the Bell gunship swooped down on us. My baseball cap was pressed down over my ears, and stray golf balls whipped around my ankles in the backdraft. Over the approaching roar, I heard the Japanese director singing The Ride of the Valkyries. Tum-ta-tum-ta, tum-ta-tum-ta, tum-ta-tum-tum, tum-ta-tum. The guy knew his Hollywood classics. He'd obviously schooled himself for shooting the club's video brochure by screening the work of Francis Ford Coppola. We all scrambled aboard with the help of some engineers in spotless overalls who strapped us in like sadists on a first date. Freshly planted palms on the driving range went horizontal as we took off. We swung around the back nine, where the club is building some new condos, of course. We did a circle around a big construction crane, and grit in our wake sandblasted the faces of scores of migrant laborers from Isan. Today they'd be Burmese. I asked a very polite trilingual PR flack from the club, who was along to make sure everybody shot around the bald patches on the fairways, how many people the place employed. He said the club itself has over 500 workers, and there's another couple hundred building the condos. I asked him if the club's employees were well paid, and he shouted into his helmet microphone, "Well enough that they don't go diving at night for lost golf balls in the water hazards. They leave that for the construction workers, which is a real shame because most of these Isan guys never learned to swim." Where are all the Isan guys working now? There's a thought. As we floated like a butterfly and roared like a blast furnace over the first tee, I looked behind us at the construction site. A 6-foot-long sheet of corrugated roofing metal flew off the ground and sailed through the air in the manner of a tossed playing card before plastering itself like a Band-Aid to a brick wall. As our wake receded, it seesawed down to the ground, landing at the feet of some very surprised coolies. we started our route over the course, hovering for a moment over each tee before zooming down the fairway to hover again at the green. Marty and the Japanese cameraman were having a silent contest to see who could lean the farthest out the big sliding door on the port side. And I was having a silent contest with my breakfast to see which of us would land first. At each green, the flag would whip around like a metronome. At each green, the flag would whip around like a metronome on meth. And sand from the traps would lift in spirals to scour the imported slick Bermuda tiff grass. We gave some poor duffer on the fourth tee a wicked slice that put his ball over the service road and into the driveway of staff quarters. I shouted, "Take a stroke!" down at him, but I doubt he heard me. I've been told that to avoid motion sickness, you should concentrate your vision on the horizon. But in a helicopter, the horizon may be vertical or horizontal or any angle in between. Sometimes it's right in front of you, and sometimes underneath you, and sometimes above you. So I concentrated on the back of the pilot's head. The crew wore green jumpsuits and helmets that made them look like the beekeepers aboard the Starship Enterprise. And I was pleased to note that on a little console between pilot and co-pilot was a hospitality tray bearing hard candies, chewing gum, Q-tips, and more earplugs than are kept on a shooting range. Riding in a helicopter seems to involve a lot of plugging and unplugging of the ears. The Japanese director kept bypassing his translator and nudging the pilot on the shoulder, showing him with violent movements of his hands how he wanted the flight to go. The pilot got a little angry, I think, because halfway down the back nine, he started to imitate the director's hand exactly, which produced a series of terrifying dips and swoops and banks. I never knew how many telephone poles, water tanks, and tall coconut trees dot your average golf course. A pack of stray dogs broke cover on the 7th fairway and scattered like sheep. From the air, the bunkers looked like Kaposi sarcomas, and the water hazards reflected our ship, but without showing the rotor blades. As our reflection crossed each pond, we looked like a green school bus flung through the air by a tornado. From maximum altitude, the course was an island of carefully planned irregularity in a sea of checkerboard rice paddies and marching rows of rubber trees. "The club is built over an abandoned strip mine," yelled the PR man. "You should have seen it before we started landscaping. A year before we began construction, a foreign film crew used the site to simulate a Vietnamese battlefield." That was a movie called Casualties of War with Michael J. Fox. I looked down at the oasis of emerald green amid Phuket's usual hot season brown. And while I admired it, I couldn't help thinking about how my landlord had charged me 500 baht last year to dig my well 3 meters deeper, chasing the falling water table. Marty kept breaking my concentration by asking for fresh rolls of film, and the Japanese director kept showing me the picture on his little color monitor. I'm sitting in a webbed chair. The floor ends 1 inch past my left foot, and beyond that, there's nothing but hundreds of feet of empty atmosphere. And he's showing me his little Sony, like saying, "See, this is really happening. I have it on tape." An empty cigarette package floated up out of Marty's camera bag and whipped around the cabin before the engineer next to me snared it with a practiced hand. Then he hawked, leaned over, and spat out the door. I looked down and spared a moment of pity for some guy's crisp new Johnny Walker Skins classic build cap. Finally, it ended. Coming in, we filled the clubhouse pool with leaves and blew the umbrellas off a foursome on the 18th green. I planted my feet on terra firma and sent a prayer of thanks off to the Wright brothers. The friendly PR flack invited us with shouts and gestures, despite the earplugs, we were all quite deaf, to enjoy a free lunch and any of the club's other amenities. Marty had warned me to bring a change of clothes, so after the cordon bleu, we showered, saunaed, jacuzzied, and dared each other to have a go at the weight training room. Finally, we attended to our toilet in a marble room with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and complimentary razors, brushes, blow dryers, creams, salves, and roll-on sticks. On our way out, I saw a member who Marty says is a professional gambler from Las Vegas, standing naked in front of a towel boy, offering the boy his hat with the word payayam. He wanted the boy to try on his hat. Maybe he intended to give it to him as a tip. I don't know. Unfortunately, payayam means to try only in the sense of to attempt. What he needed to say was long saidu sikrap, which means try it on. The boy had no idea what the crazy, rich, naked Farang wanted him to attempt with his hat, but he was having no part of it, whatever it was. You know, much of this I don't remember. Much of this is the only time I've ever been in a helicopter in my life. But I remember, I can picture in my head that naked guy, that naked Farang in the clubhouse, in the locker room, standing in front of this completely confused servant and offering him his hat, buck naked. And that's burned into my head. It's going, payayam, payayam. Knucklehead. Well, he's smart enough to gamble in Vegas and come away with enough money to buy a membership in Phuket's first golf course. Steve, remember the day. Oh, okay. This is another one about Andy, my son. There's going to be a congressional election in the United States on my birthday this year. And for that reason, I suppose I'll remember this birthday for a while. So that would have been an off-year election, a midterm. So when were the elections? In the 90s? 90, 94, 98? Is that how it went? So this would have been 94, 98, 92. 92. Well, when was Andy born? Andy was born in 94. So this is, I guess, 94? 95? I don't know. Math. There's going to be a congressional election in the United States on my birthday this year. And for that reason, I suppose I'll remember this birthday for a while. I'm hoping that my countrymen will use this election to show the incumbent party that the nation is not happy with the direction in which we're being taken. And they'll give dire warning for the presidential election that will take place near my birthday 2 years hence. November 6th is my birthday. So this would have been Bush's re-election, I guess, 94. Bush's re-election. Oh my God. It seems like such an innocent and carefree time, doesn't it? Ha ha ha! Oh, George Bush, he was a knucklehead, wasn't he? Started 2 20-year-long wars that bankrupted the nation, but still not the worst. Ha 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 ha! No politics, Steve. My son Andy celebrated his first birthday yesterday, and because newspaper deadlines warp the time-space continuum, you'll have to tell me what natural or man-made calamity marked the date. So his birthday would have been on a Saturday. This appeared in the newspaper on Sunday. I was writing it on Thursday. So when I say his birthday was yesterday, I'm talking from Sunday, from the newspaper date. I can say with certainty that Andy won't remember whatever will be or was in your time on the front page that day, any more than he'll remember the balloons and the Mickey Mouse birthday cake at the party that his mother has spent every minute of every day planning for the last 3 weeks. He probably won't remember much of his first year of breathing air. He won't remember how for the first month he wouldn't go to sleep unless I whistled the theme from Andy of Mayberry, an old American TV show. He won't remember that his first reaction to solid food left him with the nickname Pig Face for days afterwards. There it goes. He won't remember the dozens of times his mother roused me from sleep to rush him to the hospital in the middle of the night, or the slightly resentful looks that the nurses on the graveyard shift gave to us each time the hysterical woman and her grumpy farang husband demanded that the doctor examine yet again their perfectly healthy child. Yeah, it turns out there's a name for that. She had it, and I'm joking about it here. By the time we got to America with 2 children, it's called Munchausen's by proxy. She would invent illnesses in the children so that she could take them to the doctor and get attention from a doctor, from an authority figure. It was a real problem. The insurance company made noises about it. They said, we don't want to keep paying for these visits. They're unnecessary, and there's way too many of them. And there was jack shit I could do about it. He won't remember his first steps or the first time he fed himself with a spoon. He won't remember his dad trading his Yamaha motorcycle, loyal and trustworthy as an old samurai, for a new Peugeot family coupe with a typically French bad attitude and a gear shift lever on the wrong damn side. Yeah, try shifting with your left hand in a manual transmission. It's a pain in the ass. He won't remember our aging yard dog, Yu Yi. We named her after the famous singer because they both have long legs and they can't keep a beat. He may not remember Mem's grandfather, who's well over 80, or my grandmother, who's just as old and 14,000 miles further away. Who are you talking about? My grandmother. Both my grandmothers were long dead. I have no idea who I'm writing about here. Or maybe his grandmother, my mom, is 14,000 miles away. According to Dr. Spock, whose book has a place of prestige over my desk between Consolation of Philosophy and The Story of O, Andy will probably remember bits and pieces from the coming year. He'll probably remember the Thai lullabies his mother sings, and maybe even the Hebrew prayer called Shema, which is the only thing I know that comes close to a lullaby. So I remember one Thai lullaby. เด็กเอ้ยเด็กดีต้องมีหน้าที่10 อย่างด้วยกันนับถือศาสนา Hey kid, you are born with 10 duties. The first is respect religion. So every Thai person from the cradle is taught that they have duties to society. They have responsibilities as a member of this society. From the cradle, they are taught duty and responsibility. Shema is the only bit of Hebrew that I remember in my life. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, and then you repeat it. And it sounded like a lullaby to me. And I think it says, it's Hear, O Israel, the Lord is one, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. And I don't know why, from the few times I've ever been in a synagogue in my life, why that stuck in my head. But it sounded like a lullaby. So when my kids were little, that is what I would sing to them in bed. He may remember the cartoon characters that decorate the walls of his room: Hello Kitty and Mickey Mouse and Ikkyu-san and Bugs Bunny. He will probably, remember Mr. Clown, the stuffed doll with whom he has already developed a codependent relationship. Mr. Clown is in my bedroom right now. Andy is 30, I think. And I have kept Mr. Clown. I brought him all the way with me from the United States. Yeah, I'm just going to go get him and show him to you. So this is Mr. Clown. Andy got this when he was in the cradle, maybe a couple months old, and he carried it until he went to preschool. He was 4 years old. He went everywhere with this. He wouldn't be without it, 24 hours a day. And it's got this fringe of white hair, which is all worn away in the front, because to go to sleep, he would lay in bed and he would tickle his upper lip with the fur, with the fuzz, and it's all worn away. He wore away all of it. Mr. Clown. His hands and his feet, he used to have hands and feet, and they've been worn away, countless washings. Yeah, and of the few things that I brought with me from the United States, I brought Mr. Clown, and he resides on the head of my bed, which is kind of, now that I think of it, he's got to watch what I watch in bed. Oh, he's going to grow up twisted. All right, we go on. Him being Andy, he will probably remember Mr. Clown, the stuffed doll with whom he has already developed a codependent relationship. And he just may remember our mornings together. My wife is a late sleeper. Yeah, she'd sleep all day given the opportunity. And I'm by nature an early riser still. So it is most often me that will get up with Andy in the morning. I make him a cup of porridge and fruit, and I make myself a cup of coffee. I set him on a rubber mat on the living room floor with his spoon and his breakfast. I turn on the TV and I duck out to the porch for a cigarette. I imagine that Andy's first words will be, "This is Tom Mintier reporting from Bangkok for CNN." After Andy is caught up on current events and thrown his breakfast around the room, I give him a bath. Tom Mintier, CNN's man in Bangkok, back when CNN mattered. I had dinner with Tom. He invited me out to dinner one night. He read my column in the newspaper and I watched him on TV, and we went out, him and me and his wife, and we hung out for an evening. It was great fun. Tom Mintier, I'm sure he's retired as well now. Andy's favorite bath toy is an empty shampoo bottle. And his favorite bath time song is "Money for Nothing" by Dire Straits. By the time he's cleaned, powdered, combed, and reunited with Mr. Clown, his mother is awake and ready to take over. It is from these morning rituals that I carry away the image by which I will remember this first year with Andy. Since his mother is the primary caregiver 99% of the time, there's a look on Andy's face when I come into the room in the mornings. His wailing, his posture, his expression, they all say, "A big truck went by outside and woke me up. I'm hot, my diaper's wet, and I need to be fed, cleaned up, sung to, and held in someone's arms in front of the fan until I go back to sleep." But when he sees it's me that's come to get him, instead of his mom, his wailing changes to a whimper, and his face says, "Hey, you're not who I was expecting." He always, and I mean always, every single day, looks over my shoulder and out the door to see if maybe Eli isn't coming in behind me. When he sees that I'm alone and determined, He holds out his arms to me and his highly expressive face says, "Ah, what the hell, I guess I'll cope with it." That's the same look I get in the post office when the clerk looks up from his rubber ink pad and sees that it's a farang next in line. "Hey," says the clerk's big surprised face, "you're not who I was expecting." He invariably looks over my shoulder as if he'd rather serve the next person in line instead. But when he sees I'm determined to buy my stamps, he grins and his look says, "Ah, what the hell, I'll cope with it." It's hard enough getting that look at the post office, at the bank, at the fruit market, and at the flower shop. But it's agony to start every day with the knowledge that your son is disappointed to see you. But I do it every day because there's already, after this first year of acquaintance, another look that Andy gives me when I come home from work. And it's a "Dad's home" look. And I don't get that anywhere except at home. The sailor takes a wife. I'm not. Yeah, well. I am going to stop here. I think I've only done two. Yeah, this is a very long story. And I don't much like it. It's not a story I like. But I said I was going to read these in order. I'm going to read them in order. The sailor, and then we'll quit. The sailor takes a wife. Eli and I went to my friend Arnie's wedding yesterday. I love Thai weddings. They're brief and beautiful, and there's plenty of food served. Eli goes for the romance and for the clothes, and she was more than satisfied with both yesterday. Arnie's bride, Tao, was absolutely gorgeous in a high-collared Chinese jacket. Yung! Big damn mosquito. Wow. It's the rainy season. We don't get a lot of mosquitoes on the beach in Panga. We don't. They don't like the salt water, I guess. Arnie's bride, Theo, was absolutely gorgeous in a high-collared Chinese jacket and a Thai silk skirt. Her thick hair was done up with flowers and strings of pearls. The women in attendance all wept, and the men all told Arnie what a lucky guy he was. I first met Arnie in 1990 in Naihan. 1990 in Naihan, where I'd gone to complete my unproducible screenplay about Thailand. Yeah. Well, there's a story. Oh, I spent so many hours on that project and never got it finished. Eli and I were dating. She had gone to Hong Kong for a 2-week seminar on hotel management. And I was having a final fling at bachelorhood before the long, long official courtship that would eventually lead to our marriage. I wanted a secluded place with no tourists. And I took a bungalow at the back of a campground, a compound about a mile from Naihan Beach, looking for a place with no tourists. And I went to Naihan, back then. Every day I'd get up early, set my typewriter out on the porch with a pot of bad coffee and a fresh pack of cigarettes, and ground out page after page after page of pure garbage. It was awful. But I thought it was my masterpiece, and I thought it would make me rich, so I was happy. One morning, as I was furiously writing my hero out of a corner that any real writer never would have written him into, Arnie stuck his big square crew-cut face between mine and the typewriter, and he bellowed, "Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing? Don't you know it's too damn early for that noise? Sure, I think I'm going to have to kill you." I guess that's supposed to be a Scandinavian accent. Hard to believe I used to be really good at dialects. It is one of Arnie's endearing qualities that he ends every sentence he utters in English with a rising inflection. as if it's a question. So it'd be, hey, what the hell you think you're doing? Don't you know it's too damn early for that noise? Sure, I think I'm going to have to kill you. Another is his fondness for sleeping late. And my old Olympia sounds like a machine gun in a tin box when I really get rocking on it. I type very fast, very hard strikes. I'm giving myself a lot of inflammation in my hands from typing for 20 years. Just so he wouldn't have to kill me, I took him to breakfast. I had the American breakfast, eggs and toast. Arie had what must be the Norwegian breakfast, fish and beer. Over that meal, I promised in future to write only in longhand before noon, and Arie told me about himself. At first, I didn't believe most of it, but I've since learned that Arie doesn't lie. He had left Trondheim as a teenager, stowed away on a tanker bound for the Arabian Gulf. He liked the sea and he went around the world 3 times before he was 20. He had tattoos in 5 languages and he was fluent in 6. He came to Thailand aboard an oil exploration vessel in 1983 and he jumped ship in Pattaya. He bummed around. How do you pronounce Pattaya? Pattaya? I think it's supposed to be Pattaya, with the accent on the ya. But as much as a stickler for pronunciation as I am, I have always pronounced it Pattaya, and I always will. He bummed around Thailand for a few years learning the language. Then he got a job as a guide for a Dutch tour company. He took groups of other tall, likable Aryans around and saw to their comfort and safety. For this, he got a decent wage and a generous expense account. So generous, in fact, that it included 1,000 baht per night stipend for companionship. This is the part I found hard to believe at first. Arie estimated that in the 2 years before we met, he'd slept alone only about 5 nights in total. This figure is especially impressive when you consider that during this time, he'd spent 7 nights in a Songkhla hospital. With his tall, pale, good looks and that kind of money to spend, 1,000 baht a night, big money. Arie could pick and choose. He said that he never slept with anyone twice. I said, yeah, sure, and I'm really a deposed Lithuanian prince traveling in disguise. But Arie had a beautiful Leica camera, a friend in Bangkok with a private darkroom. And in his bungalow, he had some of the most amazing photo albums. I never doubted his word again. He had this teddy bear. And he would pose women with this teddy bear to show that he was actually taking these photos. And they weren't just, he didn't just gather photos of naked women. He would have them each hold a teddy bear. And they weren't like, there was no what we used to call split beaver. There was no genitals, but these women were buck naked on a bed or sitting in a chair in 1,000 different bungalows. And they were all holding this teddy bear. And they were all women that Arie had paid for sex. And he loved to show off these photo albums. Yeah, I never doubted his word again after I saw the photos. Arie was on holiday the time we met, and as I got more disillusioned with my screenplay, he and I spent more time together. But going out on the town with Arie could be disillusioning. We'd be seated in a bar, go-go or disco, and I'd spot a pretty girl and give Arie the old nudge and wink. And he'd glance at her and say, yeah, I know her. Know her sister too. They both got bad teeth. Eventually, Arie went back to work. Vilai came home, and I asked her if she would please marry me at some point in the next several years. And the unfinished screenplay went into the lowest drawer of my desk. where it is feeding the silverfish next to my right knee, even as I write this. It was one of the many things I threw away to move to Thailand this time. I kept that stupid pile of useless typing paper from, what would this be, what I say, 94, 92, until 2022. So 30 years, and never finished it, never showed it to anybody. And finally, in an act of Buddhist contrition, I think, I with everything else in the house, I got rid of it. I continued to see Arie around the island, though, usually in the company of a gang of Swedes or Finns or Lapps. It was a small enough place that you saw each other. You know, the few farang, we would see each other. It was almost a year ago that I was on a plane to Penang, going down to renew my visa, when I heard a deep voice from 3 rows back. "Yeah, I know this girl. I know her mama too." A couple of tourists had thought they could impress Arie with the pictures of their 10-day stay on Phuket. In the half hour it takes to fly to Penang, Arie took the wind out of their sails and broke up a budding international romance. Arie and I shared a cab to the New China Hotel, gave Mike, the one-eyed Chinaman, our passports and bribes, and we went to Hong Kong bar to wait out the 2 days it would take Mike to grease the wheels of the visa machine. We started talking about this and that, but Americans and Norwegians have no sports in common. Theirs are all played on ice skates, and ours are all played on TV. So we inevitably ended up talking about women. I liked talking to Arie about women. It was like talking to a fish about swimming. And I usually took notes. But this time was different. Arie was using singular pronouns, she instead of they. Evidently, Arie had decided to stop sowing wild oats and cultivate his own little kitchen garden. He'd picked out a good girl, sure, that he knew from work, and he was dead set to woo her, win her, and wed her. I saw an era coming to an end before my eyes, the fall of a hero, if not a god. Arie was quite excited about it, though, and told me how his chosen one was from an ancient Phuket family, was college educated, and ran the tour desk at a 5-star resort that her family owned. She was beautiful, smart, and very traditional, which meant pure as the wind-driven snow. Arie had been seeing her at the hotel under the pretext of his work, and I imagined that a lot of Nordic group tours had been staying there lately, even though they were probably pre-booked someplace cheaper. We spent those 2 days at the back of the Hong Kong bar, singing the praises of good girls and cementing our friendship, smoking and bragging, which is about all you can expect from a weekend in Penang. Finally, one-eyed Mike delivered us aboard good old flight TG-211, giving us our freshly minted visas and a wink, which blinded him for a moment and caused him to trip over my carry-on bag. From then on, Arie and I were on the same visa cycle, and I knew I'd see him again in 3 months, when we had to make the turnaround flight that marks the halfway point of a double-entry visa. Sure enough, he was in line with me at Phuket Airport 3 months later, and we booked our seats next to each other. While we waited for the flight, I noticed that Arie looked quite pale, even paler than his usual North Sea pallor. When we were on the plane and the stewardess came to check our seat belts and our bags, I saw Arie flinch and avoid looking at her. This was definitely odd. I asked about it, and he smiled and said, "Oh, just nerves, I guess." So I let it go. He had told me once that getting his passport stamp always made him yumpy, something to do with an old arrest warrant and still pending in Singapore. Not needing to stay over, we hit Penang Airport on the run, getting in as much duty-free shopping as we could while they stamped our visas and refueled the plane. We got back on board as they were pulling out of the gate. We stuffed our bags under all 6 seats in our row before the stewardess could catch us. We congratulated ourselves on a successful visa blitz by mixing generous amounts of our duty-free scotch with the complimentary orange juice, an original drink of Arnie's that he calls a Penang punch. Homeward bound and half blotto, Arie finally loosened up and told me what was bothering him. He had pursued the girl he told me about on the last trip, and he had progressed in 3 months as far as being allowed on a date with only one chaperone. He'd met her parents, her grandparents, and sideways relations through 3 generations. He had bought her gifts, told her he loved her, asked her to marry him. She said that she would consider it and let him hold her hand for a moment. Then she asked him, "Arie, you go with woman?" He knew what she meant, and he swore to her that no, he didn't go with woman anymore. That was all behind him. From now on, she would be the only woman in his life. That was what was making my friend Arie so nervous. He was trying to be as good as his word. He didn't want to begin their life together with lies, so he was putting his companionship allowance in the bank and sleeping alone for the first time in years. Think of it. Think of a fish giving up swimming. I poured another 3 fingers of scotch into Arnie's plastic cup and told him he was a better man than I. Periodically over the next 3 months, I would think of poor Arie. I knew from personal experience that the courtship process in Thailand was never quick, and Arie had obstacles to overcome that I never had. He would have to prove himself in ways that I never had to, and I wished him strength. 3 months later, we were back in the Hong Kong bar once again. Our passports were in One-Eyed Mike's safe at the new China Hotel. God was in his heaven, and all was right with the world, except that Arie, that big, blonde Saint Bernard of a man, was pensive and moody. He was no longer pale, though. In fact, he seemed physically fit and healthy, just very withdrawn and introspective. By this time, I'd known him long enough to know how to wait him out, and when I saw his huge cube of a head begin to nod over his beer glass, I asked him very subtly, very delicately, with all the tact and sensitivity of a true American, "So Arie, tell me, you getting any these days?" Have you ever seen a tattooed, multilingual Nordic god with his captain's ticket cry? It ain't pretty. Arie told me that he was now engaged, with a ring all purchased and presented, a date set at one of the island's biggest temples, and family invited from all over the 9 southern provinces. He saw his fiancée every day and spent hours with her, shopping for the wedding dress, picking out china patterns, buying the dozens and dozens of gifts that a groom is expected to present to his bride's parents, siblings, friends, pen pals, elementary school teachers, servants, and pets. Whenever he saw his betrothed, it was in the company of a stern granny or aunt. To date, he had held her hand 3 times, and once, on his birthday, she had kissed his cheek. He was happy, he said, but the strain of abstinence had taken its toll. Yeah, this was before Pornhub. At least once a week, she still asked him, "Arie, you go with woman?" And he always swore that no, he never did. Arnie's personal code of conduct, forged in the Calvinist fires of his youth, though it left a lot of leeway for sins of the flesh, would allow no dishonesty of word. He could not, he would not lie to her. For 6 months he had gone without a woman, but he could never go that long without companionship. Not Arie. 3 months later, we did the round trip together once again, and over our Penang punches, he invited Wilai and me to his wedding. He was more relaxed than I'd seen him in ages, and he teased the stewardess until she blushed. There was a merry mix-up at customs because, to save time shopping, I had purchased his duty-free cigarettes and he had bought my alcohol. We forgot to repack the bags on the plane, so that when we presented ourselves to the inspector in Phuket, I had twice as much tobacco as was allowed, and Arie had twice as much booze. The officials laughed with us, allowed us to repack, and we parted in the parking lot, saying we'd see each other at the wedding. And so we did, yesterday, in the terraced function room of a nice hotel on Nai Han Bay, close to where we first met. It was a small affair since Teo's family lives on a rice farm way up country, and Teo really has very little contact with them. There were a few of Arnie's pals and a few people from the bar where Teo works. Wilai made me promise to buy her a Chinese jacket like Teo's, and I said I would when she grew her hair long enough to do up with flowers and pearls like Teo's. I'm glad Arie has found whatever it was he was searching the world for. His wedding to Teo gives new meaning to the phrase male bonding ritual. A lot of marriages last a lifetime based on less. His marriage might have lasted longer than mine. So I don't know if it's clear from that. I had to walk a very fine line in the newspaper. I don't know if it comes across, but Arie, he promises her he'll never be with another woman, but he's got to have companionship. So he explores the world of gatoys, of transsexuals. And he meets one and he falls in love and they get married. That's what it was. All right. Talk to you later, bud. Have a great day.